Good morning, my Mormon-fuites. Excuse me. Not bad, Mormon-fuite, huh? Just want to say, hey, this is Jeff with Dorman, Mormon-fu Dojo. Hope you guys are doing well today. I wanted to do a follow-up video. I keep trying to film this, and it keeps going up to 30 minutes, and I get off on tangents, and so I'm just gonna try to stay focused. I just wanted to give a little work history, uh, kind of talk about my accident and the state of Jeff Jensen physically, mentally, spiritually currently. Um, there we go. So I spent my career in the fitness world as a life coach and personal trainer. 35 years. I've owned two same name gyms in different areas in Utah. I was part of another building of another uh, brand earlier in my career before I branched out on my own for other reasons. But I that was a perfect job for me. I knew right off after serving my mission in California, coming back at 21, I knew what I wanted to do. There was no question, and I joined Holiday Valley Spa as an employee and went through their training program, their personal training program, and then the rest is history. So I'm 6'2", and at my best shape that I think I was at, I was about 295 to 305, somewhere in that range, with about 15 to 18% body fat. That's a pretty big guy. I'm not Brian Shaw big, but um, that's a pretty big dude. And I felt good. I mean, mentally I felt good, physically I felt good, spiritually I felt good at that weight. I just, um, not many people liked it. My wife never complained, my kids didn't complain, but some people just, they, especially in the fitness world, you know, um, I was more of a, strength power type lifter versus a bodybuilder, never concerned about my abs. I never need, I saw my abs once, and that was maybe post mission, maybe 21 when I first got off my mission. I had a little six pack. Me and my friend John. Um, it doesn't serve a purpose, and my hat goes off to anybody who does. It is very hard to maintain that low of percent body fat, especially if your body's not used to it. And that's just not it's not for me. For me, in my mind, it just didn't serve a purpose, and it has to serve a purpose for me to latch onto it and make it work. So 6'2", we'll say let's go down the middle, 300 pounds. I was living in Utah at the time, and so I would put a 70 pound weight vest on, and regularly I would run the stadium stairs at the University of Utah. And this is going around complete. This is up and down. I'm not skipping any rows of stairs, going up and down. And I would do that twice. I would do 1,000 calf raises afterwards, and then I would lunge back and forth the length of the football field, and not just goal to goal, but end of goal to end of goal. So it's about I think it's an extra 10 yards within the goal area. So I think total it's 240 yards of lunging. It gives you pretty good. And then I would do wall sits. I mean, my goal was always to get as long as I can. Uh, the longest after all that I've been able to do was 7 or so minutes, something like that. Anyway, you have to understand I thrived on the pain. I thrived on the burn. I thrived on just how it made me feel. It very therapeutic for me. So I was, not the strongest, not the biggest, not the toughest. I was pretty good at every one of those things, but that was done by design. I'm not a believer in being an expert. Okay, I want to be good at more than one thing. I don't want to be an expert in just one thing. I don't want to be bigger in the phrase bigger, faster, stronger. I want to be bigger, faster, stronger. All of them. But you can't be the best in all three or in multiple categories. It's very, very rare does a human specimen live up to that kind of grade of excellence. That takes a very, I don't know it's ever been done. Maybe, maybe biblically, Samson, maybe the only person that really comes to mind, Moroni, maybe. Um, so So let's jump. We're going to jump way, way ahead up into 2012 of June. I was in a car accident with my wife and two boys, two youngest boys. We hit a red 450 or red 250 dually Ford pickup. It's funny you get these kind of accidents and you remember. That day is still very vivid, very bright in my mind. Hit him about, I don't know, 45, 50 miles an hour. Didn't have time to brake. Caused a lot of problems. Destroyed my car. Broke Amanda's back and her legs. The kids were badly beaten up on their face just from some lacerations from the windows imploding. And I received multiple lacerations on my head. I had a third-degree burn on my left arm from reaching over the steering wheel, and I braced myself as well as put my arm over and try to protect Amanda more if I could. Seatbelt bruising, horrible. And my injuries were more internal that I didn't know about. This is one of the, I guess, the ironies of being big and strong is sometimes my back was so strong and so powerful, and my pain tolerance is so high that I had some discomfort for the next few weeks. Obviously, that kind of impact, and in the accident, they came and they checked Amanda and they carted Amanda off immediately. We crashed in front of a subway, and luckily there were some off-duty nurses and paramedics there, so they came out and assisted, and so I were able to get the boys looked at quickly and call my mom. She came and got the boys and left, and it was like, and it happened all like that, and then I'm standing in the middle of the road watching them pick up the last of my debris from my totaled car. Kind of surreal. Been trying to call my clients and cancel or reschedule appointments. I had, all these other things to do other than take care of myself or remind somebody to take care of me. So no one did. No one looked at me. No one asked me how I was doing. I had a blister that was on my left arm. It was probably 6 or 7 inches long, maybe a half an inch to an inch high, maybe a little bit higher, and it was just burning because of the chemical composition of the airbag. They use rocket fuel to propel it at such a high velocity to deploy it at sub 1 second speed. So anyway, I had to go in and I asked one of the paramedics as I walked into the subway, what can I do? This is burning the hell out of my arm. He says, you got to go clean it. You got to wash it off. So I went into the bathroom and I rolled up a bunch of towels, paper towels, put it in my mouth, and grabbed a cloth or something like that that was in there, and just scrubbed it with soap, and that was pretty painful. That hurt. Anyway, off topic. So we're gonna fast forward now to November 29th, same year, 2012. I'm in my gym. I'm cleaning up. I hear a pop. I fall to the floor. I know exactly what's happening. The car crash comes back vividly in my mind, and my back is, I'm pretty much useless laying on the floor there. I couldn't move for a while. I think more because I was fearful because the pop was so loud and the pain was so intense initially that it kind of paralyzed me. Anyway, I was diagnosed with Cauda equina syndrome, a year and a half later. So the initial diagnosis was incorrect. I went and had back surgery. I had a fusion. They pushed a titanium screw too far in, and it perforated the spinal sheath. Rubbed it against my spinal column for about a year, and then I had another surgery. So that was in 2013. Another surgery in 2015. They took all the hardware out. They replaced it. It was a very bad, long surgery, 12-hour surgery. Lost a lot of blood, aspirated into my lungs. Got a bad case, really nasty case of pneumonia. Kept me in the hospital for another month. My recovery was horrible. I had a reaction to the drugs. When I got home, they had to, and we lived in Sequim, Washington, 3 hours away from Seattle where I had the surgery. So I had to get an ambulance and they had to, cruise back. So, I had, and I kind of had a feeling this was happening, but I had a huge identity crisis. I was no longer the man that I had created, that I felt that God had designed me to be. A warrior, a superhuman father, superhuman husband. Now, listen, I'm not perfect, guys. I make a lot of mistakes. Okay. And I have no problem being accountable for any mistakes I've ever done. That's on me, and that will always be on me, and I will take the stripes for it. But I went into a bad, bad, bad place, guys. And there may be you guys out there that know what I'm talking about. When you're stripped of your manhood, literally, your inability to provide and protect is gone. Because my whole life I spent literally with martial arts, with boxing, with just any kind of self defense technique. You know, I tried to be a sponge of knowledge for martial arts and just fighting arts. Period. Because I wanted a well-rounded understanding. I never wanted to, by design, a kind of recognition or a belt to parade around my status as a martial artist. It was a personal journey for me, and I try to keep it a personal journey for me. I believed in Bruce Lee's philosophy, of taking the best and putting it to use. If it doesn't work, you throw it away. If it does, you keep it in your repertoire. you know, uh, and it's tough when you lose that ability. And I was put on disability, early disability, SSI. I get a pittance of a check every month. It's awful. Luckily, I am married to an amazing woman who has had to go back to work full time, and she does it without complaining. I know she's upset. I know that she's hurting inside. She still hurts from the accident. Nothing has been resolved 100% for her, and I am on the sidelines seeing this, and it's tearing me up inside. So, after the second surgery, I was on a lot of narcotics, and I don't want to say addicted to them, but I relied on them heavily. We'll say that. And I finally went cold turkey on them. I needed to get off them because I was self admission, as well as other people, have communicated to me that I was a real asshole. And I was, if you were to look up asshole in the dictionary, you would see a face of me. That's how bad it was. I was hurt. I didn't know how to cry out for help. And so that was my cry. I bullied my family, my boys, my wife. I verbally abused my wife. Not on a daily basis, but when I get mad, my temper was very volatile at the time. I was suicidal. I was volatile. You know, um, volatile in the sense that I had a short fuse for my temper. I've never been physical with my boys or wife. Um, but a lot of damage was done unintentionally. I didn't maliciously plan it out. I have my emotions on my sleeve all the time. That's how I run. That's how I operate. I'm not afraid to share with you, whatever it is. Um, I don't have an ego, guys, despite people may think or want to believe. It just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me anymore. I never needed to be the biggest guy. I never needed to be the strongest, toughest, baddest, meanest. I just needed to be good at everything. That's it. And that was my standard. I believed in not taking an offense in a confrontational situation. I had a three-strike rule that I always kept in my mind. You know, I you get three strikes if you get to a point where you start touching me or you start, and that served me well. But it was quite a few years later after the surgery, maybe 2018, 19, just a little bit before COVID came out. And I was playing a game, God of War 3. It wasn't when it came out. I don't think it was released in that. It was a remake of it. And there's a line in there where Pandora is talking to Kratos. She says, "Hope is what we fight for when all is lost." You guys got to understand that I was beyond rock bottom. I weighed 525 pounds. I was fat, morbidly fat. Luckily, I didn't have diabetes. I didn't have high blood pressure. I didn't have a bad heart rate. And that's because I've never smoked. I've never drank. I've never done drugs. And what do I mean never? I mean, I've never touched my lips. Okay. And I didn't have sex before I was married. I was a picture boy of being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Because I believe it, and I believe it now. That nothing's changed. Um, but that put a spark in me. That hit me pretty hard. Uh, I had been off my narcotics for a while. I was still taking a lot of pills. One time I was on methadone. If you don't know what that is, you can look it up. But your identity is a big deal, especially for guys. Guys, if you agree with me, put a one in the comment. Say, hey, I agree with you, Jeff. But it's being a man is everything. I mean, it's despite what women think, society would crumble if men ceased to exist. If we were to we were to stop existing immediately, and they're the only woman on the earth, it would fail. Simply because we, and by design, and women agree to this too, but by design, biologically speaking, men are stronger and physically superior to any woman. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. It's not giving a diss. If you have a problem with that, then that's your own personal issues. That has nothing to do with the issues between a man and woman biologically. Stop trying to pretend you're someone that you're not. And I was no longer that person. And I didn't know who I was. And I'm still trying to figure that out. My place now in society, my place in my family, my place in my own head. Okay? And that's the gist of it. And here I am now. I've lost 100 and I don't know 15 pounds since then. I took place a couple years ago. I did some fasting and a couple of rounds of fasting. I did a 12-day fast. I did a 7-day fast. Was successful in both of those. Lost a lot of weight. In combination, I lost about a little over 115 or so pounds in a year. And I've been around, 415 to 40, 400 to 415 back and forth, for a couple of years now. And now I realize that I need to, as the ambassador of and the face of Mormon-fu, I need to pick up the pace. I need to kick it into high gear. I need to represent. And so now I'm on a fast now. I'm like, let's see, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Is today Friday? I believe it is. Yep, Friday, August 22nd. So beginning my 5th day fasting. I feel great. I feel positive. I have a smile on my face. I'm energized. And the energy that you have is unreal, guys. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you just fast for 48 hours. 72 if you can handle it. That's about the time it takes the body to get rid of all the sugar, stored sugar, the glycogen, the glucose, and get rid of it all so the body can convert over to a fat burning machine. And that's what we prefer to use is energy as fat because it's twice as powerful as carbohydrates. You get 9 calories per gram versus 4 calories per gram of energy. So here I am. I created Mormon-fu back in 1986. It's been a part of my life. It's a way of life. Being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it's a way of life. It's how you live your life. It's how you honor your parents. It's how you honor your Heavenly Father and your Savior. And it's people hear Mormon and they run sometimes. They fear it. They don't understand it. And instead of asking a member of the Mormon Church, the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints, they ask somebody else or a former member. Who never has anything nice to say. They're already biased. They're already upset. It's funny, but the ironic thing about that is it takes quite a bit to be ousted from the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints and be I can't think of the word now. Gosh darn it, excommunicated. It's not an easy process. Okay, it takes you got to do some stupid stuff. I've never regretted anything but how I talk to my wife. It's the only thing I regret because it's had a direct impact on our relationship now, 2025. And there's a slim chance that it may not work out. And I have nobody to blame but myself. Rightfully so. They're my actions. I made the choice. But I pray, and I hope you guys pray for me, that the relationship between me and Amanda grows tighter, that we may have humility, we may have insights and understanding of each other's insecurities and strengths and what they're the pain that they're feeling, so that we can communicate what's important. Well, guys, listen, that's be 25 minutes here. I don't want to go any further than that. I'll try to do more. You see, I'm antsy, man. I got so much energy, it's crazy. And thank you for watching, and peace. Talk to you guys soon.